Hello.
Oh, hey, excellent. All right, we found the magic button.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Just in time, too. This is the Grass is Greener on WXRW. Hang on. This is the Grass is... Well, hang on. Let me just... All right. All right, can I hear myself? Yes, I can hear myself. All right. This is the Grass is Greener on WXRW 104.1 FM in Milwaukee. I am the host of the program, Gary Grass. With me is my co-host, Babette Gruneau.
Hi, and tonight we have Larry C. Johnson. He's a former CIA officer and intelligence analyst, and a former advisor to the U.S. State Department's Office of Counterterrorism. As an independent contractor, he has provided training for the U.S. military special operations community for 24 years, and he's been a frequent guest on CNN and other programs until he started talking about the endless wars, and then he became kind of a persona non grata on those shows. However, he is still available to be heard on...
well, we hear plenty of him.
Yes. On... if I can read it,
she can never read her
Judging
writing.
Freedom with Judge Napolitano, and someone we've also had on the show, Ray McGovern, for the Intel Roundtable. And now he's joining us on our show right here.
We're poaching all the judge's guests.
Yeah, yes. He also has his own online publication, sonar21.com. So welcome, Larry Johnson.
Hey, thanks for the introduction. I guess you guys are a little chilly up there.
Yes, we are.
Oh, it is. We're in a heated studio. We actually are in a storefront though, so it's just one layer of glass between us and the elements. So it's kind of nice. We get to see people walking up, and occasionally they'll hear what we're saying and they decide to moon us or something. But it's always fun.
I gotcha. Now, 71 degrees here, so I'm sitting outside.
Oh, okay, yeah. So something for us all to be envious about. So we had you on because we are particularly we need to do something to talk about Syria, right? We had this tremendous collapse where this conflict, which had been hot for a while, then pretty much frozen for a while, with the U.S. sort of occupying a third of the country, and just in the last week, it's just everything has just fallen. I mean, the regime is gone. The state is, I think, just effectively gone. There's just like a border on a map, and everything is.
And a bunch of countries invading it.
Yeah, so
it's a mess.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
So what the hell happened?
Well, it's pretty complicated. It started, probably started actually 70 years ago with Dwight D. Eisenhower authorizing CIA operations to try to get rid of Hafez al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, the recent leader of Syria. 13 years ago, with the start of the Arab Spring, the CIA launched a major covert operation in tandem with the Brits and the Turks that was designed to create a civil war in Syria with the ultimate objective of getting rid of Bashar al-Assad. And at the time when that started, the United States was able to corral the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and convinced the Arab League to kick Bashar al-Assad out of the Arab League, declare him persona non grata, which they did. And then Syria devolved into this massive civil war. Bashar al-Assad is an Alawite. It's a form of Shia Islam. They are a minority in Syria. Bashar's father had slaughtered about 10,000 Sunnis in the city of Home. I think it was back in the 70s. And so that created some long-lasting animosity there. And
which is always
war,
a great feeding ground for the CIA to have something to prey upon.
oh yeah, no, exactly right. So the war continued until in the aftermath of the Maidan in Ukraine and U.S. efforts to, they engineered a coup and were heading towards Russia. The Russians finally said, "Hey, we'll intervene to help save Bashar al-Assad from this onslaught of ISIS." Now, ISIS is a descendant of Al-Qaeda, and will at least, I know there are a lot of people out there that insist, "Oh, it wasn't Al-Qaeda that attacked us on 9/11," but from my standpoint, let's go with that narrative. So the group that attacked us on 9/11 emerges as a more radical faction in Syria in 2011, 2012. And indirectly, the United States was helping support Al-Qaeda. We always claimed we were fighting them, but at the same time we're fighting them, we're also arming them, or arming elements of those jihadists that spun off.
Right.
And where Benghazi, that's where Benghazi entered the story back in 2012, because Benghazi was a clearinghouse for weapons that the CIA and the Brits together were collecting in Libya. They were being cycled through Benghazi, prepped, put onto ships, and then sent to Turkey, where the Turks took the weapons and then passed the weapons to their the Sunni Islamic fighters. So this war has been raging. The Russians intervened, really put a halt to the expanse of the ISIS crowd, and things have been in sort of stasis over the last 6-7 years. What happened of late is that the United States and the Brits, working with the Turks, helped engineer this latest uprising, and they also used some of the Gulf Arabs. So Bashar al-Assad was being encouraged by the Gulf Arabs to distance himself from Iran, and at the same time, he rejected offers of assistance that were proffered by Russia, both for military training, boosting their own military, Syria's own military capability, and to also provide some financial aid. And Assad rejected it all. There was a BRICS conference that was held in Russia, in Kazan, in August, I believe. And Bashar al-Assad was supposed to attend that. He was supposed to talk to Recep Erdogan, the president of Turkey. But Assad was going to have none of that. He refused to entertain the meeting, didn't attend the BRICS. And so that was where he really started distancing himself. So jump ahead to 2 weeks ago.
I'm just going to kind of theorize here that, was he maybe depressed or something that he didn't want to talk to anybody? Because it wasn't just Erdogan he didn't want to talk to. He didn't seem to want to talk, with Putin or any of the other people who may have helped him.
Well, I think let's put it in high school terms. Mm-hmm. He wanted to go sit back at the cool kids table. Okay, and the cool kids table in this case for all the Arab nations. Mm-hmm. And so in the course of that, he distanced himself, and in distancing himself from the Russians and the Iranians, set in motion this whole covert operation that had been underway now for 13 years, and so it finally came to fruition with the Turkish-backed group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS for short. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is sort of a compilation of groups that split from ISIS. Now, that doesn't mean that they are a bunch of nice guys. In fact, since the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham emerged in 2017, January, And from January until the latest statistics issued by the U.S. Department of State, HTS was one of the top 10 terrorist groups in the world. And I would simply note on that top 10 list, you don't find a single group backed, funded, trained, organized by Iran. Not a single one. All of the groups, or I'd say 80% of the groups, are all ISIS derivatives. They had the new Communist Party, I think, in the Philippines and one other group, but the majority of them were these radical Islamists intent on creating what they see as a caliphate, a global caliphate, a complete government by devoted Sunni Islamists. And these Sunni Islamists see themselves as somebody quite distinct from the Shia. They see the Shia as apostates.
Right.
And in fact, there was a pretty famous letter that the number 2 guy in Al-Qaeda, Ayman Zawahiri, people remember his picture. He was an older bearded guy. And he sent a letter to then Abu Musab Zarqawi, lots of Z's here, and counseling Zarqawi to stop killing all the Shia Muslims and attacking Shia mosques in Iraq because it was making them look bad.
Right. I mean,
basically,
this is one of the tactical differences that separated the different groups that were splitting apart, right? Because you had some that wanted to fight the near war, which was, just kill all the Shia that were around us, and there's some that wanted to focus on the far war, like we have to defeat the United States first, and then then we can do what we want because we'll have everything here. And so it's like, when you say they're, splitting doesn't make you a nice guy, they're splitting over these like details of who do we kill first,
Yeah. Well, and then the real odd thing is that this current leader of HTS, Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, he is currently sitting on a rewards poster prominently displayed by State Department that is offering a reward of $10 million. Turn him in, and we'll give you $10 million.
I found him. He's in Damascus.
Yeah. Hey, if you're looking to get some spare cash for a Christmas present, just hop a plane, get over to Syria, grab him, bring him back, and the State Department will pay you a cool $10 million. Well, now the first indication I had that this was a CIA op was when CNN sends this nice little lady with a head covering to interview Jilani, and Jilani is sounding like woke meister of the year, where he is saying, "Oh no, we believe in diversity and human rights and all that." Boy, we couldn't be nicer guys. It's all a lie, but the United States. So here you got the CIA on one hand backing Jilani.
Some of our most prominent assassins are gay.
Yeah. But you've got, on the one hand, State Department is backing Jilani as being the new face of Syria, at the same time that the CIA is working with him behind the scenes. And yet the State Department's also trying to figure out, good Lord, how do we get him off the terrorist list? We've declared him as terrorist. Now we've got to go back and say, oh, no, never mind, we didn't mean it.
Well,
it's just insanity.
They've done that before. I mean, they managed to whitewash the Azov battalion, right, in Ukraine.
Right.
They had those guys all listed as Nazis. There was bans on sending weapons to them because they were they were on the list, right? And now
now they're all reformed.
Oh yeah, they've just a couple like quick organizational switcheroos, and like all these guys that are like covered in swastika tattoos are now suddenly reformed.
Right, and they carry copies of Mein Kampf. They're fans of that corporal from Austria who led Germany into a debacle in World War II. We claim, we're back in democracy.
And the ADL says they're okay, right?
Oh yeah, now, yeah. No Nazis here.
Yeah.
They just dress like them, talk like them, act like them, but no, they're not Nazis.
Yeah.
So we've got an Alice in Wonderland foreign policy. The world is completely turned upside down, and On top of it, you've got Turkey then pursuing its own objectives. Recep Erdogan envisions recapturing the glory of the Ottoman Empire, which, basically ruled the entire Levant, what we now call the Middle East or West Asia, take your preferred descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
And, they ruled it for about 500 years. So now they're seeing this as their chance to recapture it. But the problem is, Assad, for all of his faults, and I don't want to argue that he was some beacon of human rights. However, on the anti-human rights side, he did collaborate with the CIA after 9/11 in allowing torture to be carried out in Syria.
That's right.
Because he had a strong incentive to get rid of the Al-Qaeda folks as well, because they were targeting him. So it was one of those strange bedfellow moments.
Yeah, we were picking up people in Italy and renditioning them to Syria.
Right.
So, I mean, some of the stuff that you say kind of highlights, like you say, I mean, if you want to get into the weeds, there's a lot of complexity to go around. And I think, I saw some guy like right before all this happened, like maybe a week ahead of that, kind of give this a little video clip where he said, you guys, you're not getting it. This is all one war. What's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Syria, what's happening in this place, what's happening in that place. And there wasn't that much happening in Syria at that particular time that we knew about. But it's like, it's all one war, right? And you guys either need to get that or you're just not in the game. And, I looked at that video and I thought, that's probably about 95% accurate, because there's all these other little, twists and turns where people like wind up on what you would expect to be the wrong side on things, because they all have their own other agendas and they all have their own other disputes. So it's not like one nice side that's all happy, friendly together versus another side that's all happy, friendly together. But there are overall, if you look at it from a little distance, there are two sides. And
yes.
And it's like, if you don't get that and you don't see how these places are all connected, it's like we're sending arms to Ukraine and they're ending up in the hands of Boko Haram in West Africa, right?
Right.
And, and if you don't follow like all those connections, you're going to miss out on big pieces. So you've got all these people are we've talked about having these Palestinian friends, right? Who are like, Gaza for justifiable reasons, right? And our next week's show, we're going to talk to one of those people, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of the people, when we talk to them about Syria, they're like celebrating that Assad is gone. Assad is gone. Assad is gone. It's like, if you're out of the frying pan and into the fire, I mean, you're going to get something much, much worse here.
Right.
The biggest part of that for them, I would have thought, would have been that Israel came tromping over the border into Syria and bombing it like all get out, and came over, took more of the Golan Heights, took more of Syria itself, and
a little strip along the Lebanese border for some reason. And yet I really thought there would be protests, and I don't see any. And it's like, so what happened here? I mean, I know that they have they had a problem with Assad for various reasons, but still, I mean, there's worse things coming, or worse things now.
If you're looking for a simple explanation of who's got the white hats, who's got the black hats, they're just a bunch of gray hats out here. And, by this early jubilation on the part of the United States and Israel, yay, the wicked witch is dead, Assad is gone. Now the problems are really going to begin, because, in addition, although it's a majority Sunni population, just because they share sort of a generally similar religious outlook, the Sunnis don't all get along with each other, for starters. Out east in Syria, you have the Kurds. Everybody hates the Kurds. The Syrians hate the Kurds. The Turks hate the Kurds. The Iraqis hate the Kurds. But who's the United States backing? Oh, that would be the Kurds.
Only one part of the
So,
Kurds.
yeah,
Yeah.
one group of Kurds. There's a group of Kurds that are pro-U.S. that are seen by Turkey as being consummate evil. And the Turks have their own version or flavor of the Kurds, which they celebrate and want to back. Of course, right now, Turkey is invading that part of Syria in an effort to try to defeat those Kurds. And it's putting the United States in a position of saying, well, we promised these guys we'd have their back, but if we have their back, we're going to have to fight the Turks. And do we really want to fight the Turks? And, so, I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah. I mean,
so the Alawites have got their guns. The Shia Muslim community have their guns. The Druze down south have decided to align themselves with Israel. And then you got Jordan to worry about, because Jordan's going to get flooded with refugees, and it's going to add to the turmoil inside Jordan with King Abdullah trying to sort that out. So instead of the United States buying, this action buying peace and bringing some stability to the region, I said today, jokingly, but it's also true. Syria is the Arabic word for Yugoslavia. Okay, remember what happened to Yugoslavia? So when it broke up from once having been one single nation with a lot of ethnic diversity and religious problems internal, the Tito had kept it under control.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Once he was gone, that control started breaking down. And we've had now just, close to 25 years of, actually longer than that, 30 years of unrelenting civil war in that country. You've got Croatia, you've got Serbia, you've got Slovenia, Bosnia, Herzegovina. So, it's a mess.
North Moldova
and
North Macedonia, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's too many of them, and all these little states that do not have anywhere near the collective power that they had when they were Yugoslavia are now they've lost their union. They're standing alone in front of the United States, and they're all being scooped up and brought into NATO, and we're interfering like crazy in all of those places.
Yeah, and we don't really have control. Now, who's exercising the control in these countries? Well, right now, the one that nobody's talking about in any of the governmental gatherings are the drug trafficking criminal organizations in Syria.
Oh yeah.
When you're talking about moving money and moving drugs, those guys aren't going away. They've got too much financially at stake, and best of all, they're armed to the teeth as well. So what we set ourselves up for, and this is one of the reasons the Russians decided not to intervene, as did the Iranians. They recognized this is a sandwich that's made of what Ray McGovern is fond of calling a bovine male excrement.
Right.
And the Russians and Syrians and Iranians all decided we don't want to have that for dinner, lunch, or breakfast. So we'll let the West eat it.
Wise choice, perhaps. It does seem that. Gary, did you want to say something?
No, I was to say, the dynamic that you depict is like completely logical. It's a failed state now, right? We just watched the state fail. The state just evaporated, and so what's left? You've had this huge power vacuum, and whoever's there, they all stake out their individual fiefdoms, and now it's a question of their power to consolidate their own little domains, and then there's all these kind of foreign influences coming in at the same time. You've got a foreign invasion coming in. You've got all these little pieces. The U.S. is still sitting in happy and with its third of the country that it's been sitting on
the oil,
taking all the oil for all this time, and they're keeping that. So it's.
Well, remember, they're taking the oil for Israel. Most of that oil is going to Israel. So that was one of the other purposes where the Israelis saw themselves, hey, we got a winner here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is. But they've got a problem as well because the United States does with the Kurds. That's going to be one of the real gnawing issues that will hit Donald Trump as soon as he takes office. What's the United States going to do? Are we going to back the Kurds, which means we're going to fight the Turks? Now, Trump in recent days has made comments blaming the Turks for this mess.
Right.
So,
well, Trump always overstates so that he can have a position to negotiate down from, right?
Yeah.
He wants to put pressure on the Turks to get the best deal he can, right? But I mean, I think probably people will see this as inevitable. We're going to betray the Kurds because we have a lot of experience doing that. And we're very good at it.
Yeah. Well, when the United States shows up and says, "Hey, we got your back,"
watch out.
That's what your new prison inmate cell says to you. Hey, don't worry, I got your back. That's usually not going to turn out well.
Yeah, it's not the nice euphemism that you expect it to be.
Right.
So there's just so much going on. I don't know what to go at next. I mean there are so many different segments, right? I mean, one of the things that is also true. You talk about. Okay, you've got the Druze, you've got the Alawites, you've got and it's this Shia group, and of course there's different Shia groups too, right? I mean, this is one of the things that you figure out when you're, like, why does Iran support the Houthis this much but not more? It's like, well, they're actually two completely different breeds of Shia. They follow a different number of imams. Like we recognize legitimacy of the first 6, but we recognize these first 12. So it's like there are different points in the religion. So there's all these different dynamics going on, and there's all these chunks, and it's like I mean, I don't even know how big the Israel factor is going to be because it's like we don't know where that's going to go yet. And I think, we know that it's bad. We just don't really know how bad yet because we don't know. There's a lot of like remaining variables that are still, as of this reading, still floating around.
Well, it's not going to get better. Let's put it that way. There's no solution on the horizon of some peace conference where they all come together and say, hey, let's live in harmony.
Yeah, everyone wants to watch this and see, is it going to get worse or is it going to get much, 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 much worse?
Yeah. Well, and let's put it in some religious terms that will help the average listener in the United States understand it, since the United States is still predominantly a Christian country. Mm-hmm. But when we say it's Christian, what are you talking about? Are you talking about Catholics? You're talking about Eastern Orthodox Christians? You're talking about Greek Orthodox Christians, Lutherans, Baptists, mm-hmm. Presbyterians, Methodists, Mormons, and Jehovah's Witness,
Unitarian Universalists,
Seventh-day Adventists. Yeah. So these from the Muslim standpoint, they look at all those different variations.
Oh, they're born
flavors
again.
But they look at those flavors of Christianity as just they're all Christians as far as they're cross people. Right. They're people of the cross, and a lot of times they give them a choice: either convert to Islam or die. For in this group that are the ISIS type, that's how they approach it. And again, not all Muslims are of that same brittle, uncompromising view. In the same way that not all Christians are brittle in the same uncompromising view.
Yeah, none of the Muslims that I know personally are extremists, right? They're all nice mm-hmm. people, right? I get along with all of them, and no one has ever even asked me to convert. I mean, I've been to the mosque a couple times, I guess, but I haven't been ever asked to convert. But you have these like very, very radical extremes where it's like they're willing to find anyone who is a sliver of a degree different from them a heretic and decide that they need to be killed. And that's a potential. It's a very dangerous thing if you are in one of these organizations that the slightest deviation from the orthodoxy is going to get you killed, right? So it's in some sense good not to be fighting the near war first, because the near war will decimate your own ranks before you get to utilize these people in your far war.
Well, again, I think the short-term Pyrrhic victory is Israel thinks that it's bought itself some security because, oh, well, okay, we've gotten rid of Syria, which was being used to funnel weapons to Hezbollah.
Well, I mean, Hezbollah was storing missiles in Syria, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, some in Syria, but most of it was stored down in Lebanon. But
one report that they had some in Syria that they weren't able to use, that Assad wouldn't let them use it, and then obviously when he was gone, Israel came barging in, and certainly they weren't going to be able to use it. So it's just like lost.
Well, let me suggest that Hezbollah still has an ample supply of weapons,
Well, that may be,
and
yes.
the belief that now that they've cut off the supply from Syria, that there will be no more smuggling of weapons to Hezbollah. Please,
yeah,
this area of the Middle East has been transited by smugglers for 3,000 years. Okay,
yeah,
and it's done through tribes. It's done through family relationships, and that just doesn't disappear overnight. It's something that we in the West really have no ability to grasp and fully appreciate, or at least most don't.
I think
so.
Yeah, go ahead. I think a lot of people have been struggling to kind of figure out just what dimension this has for the region, because I mean, in one sense it seems like we just lost like a key player that we took our eyes off of our rook that was in this corner. Now we've lost the rook, right? That the so-called axis of resistance now is missing this big piece that used to be there, that we've kind of took for granted that we had Syria, and now Syria is suddenly gone. And then the question is like, well, Syria is not a very big country. It wasn't really doing very much. It was already, the economy was completely battered. They couldn't afford to pay their military. Everyone was disgusted with the regime. They'd been under years and years and years of sanctions. They were under, years and years of military fatigue from fighting the war against ISIS already. There really wasn't that much there. It was kind of a shell anyway. So, although this is a terrible tragedy for most of the people in Syria, it may be not that big a piece that's been removed from the greater geopolitical board.
Well, no. In fact, it's going to exacerbate the conflict. It's going to contribute to the chaos. And then all we can see is, look at our own record in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last 23 years. What have we made the region safer? Have we made it more peaceful? Have we brought about reconciliation? No, just the opposite. In fact, we've hardened some of the positions to a significant extent, and so that trend is only going to get worse going forward. It's not going to get better, and that's where it's going to create problems for Israel and for the United States and for Turkey. So, and that's why the Russians decided, we're going to get out. Notice that over the last couple of days, there have been both pleas from HTS and from the Turks to the Russians, like, please don't go, please stay. and yet it was being presented to the West, oh, this is a major black eye. Oh, Russia's really suffered a devastating loss. And I think Russia is more in the position of that. Imagine yourself. You've got a brother-in-law and a sister, and both of them are drunks and drug addicts, and they've got kids that they are not taking care of properly, and they're constantly battling. And all of your attempts to intervene to try to bring some order to that, all it does is it makes them both mad at you, and they punch back at you. So you realize that, what? There's little I can do to actually change this situation. I can stick around to try to help where I can, but I'm not going to make it my mission in life to fix this, because you can't fix it. It's beyond your power.
Right. I mean,
and that's what we're going to find out.
I mean, Pepe Escobar tells this, gives this account of how, Assad went to Russia for help, and Russia didn't want to commit forces that it needed for Ukraine, right? Although I don't think it's all that taxed in Ukraine because it's a big country, it's got a lot of forces, right? But it it has to project them all the way to Syria. It's a little more difficult than Ukraine, which is right there. But they apparently told Assad, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, and they had a whole laundry list of things for him. You need to, you need to talk to Turkey. You need to, kind of lighten up on the opposition. You need to make sure these people get paid. You need to do this, and they had it kind of all worked out. Here's a lot of good advice for you and what you need to do, and. I heard another account where they, had this will really put a lot of pressure on Assad to do this, but Assad really couldn't do that, he said, because it would cause this problem, which is true, because it would cause that problem. And it's you got a real sense of after an extended period of sanctions and war and all sorts of compromises being made over the last 13, 14 years, however long it's been, that you just had such a mess on that chessboard where there was nothing you could do without sacrificing pieces. Mm-hmm. And Assad may have made some bad decisions, but in every case he had there was some sacrifice being asked to be made in order to make that decision. It's I can't do that because this is happening over here. I can't do that because this is happening over here. It's I don't have the money to do that. If I take it away from here, that'll deprive these people. Then I'll lose this and I'll lose that. I need this. And part of it, you're right, is that he was just trying to be one of the cool kids, right? But he kind of, I think he's thought that was his way out, right? If after 13 years of this, you're always going to look for a way out. And some countries are able to kind of broaden their base of support for a while, so they get along a little better. And other places just they're just going after people that are just on the other side, right? They're just they were never going to get the Arab League. To play nice with them unless they were completely going to be destroyed by the U.S., I think.
Yeah, I just don't understand how they could think that they would get members of the Arab League or any of these other groups, or even dreaming that the U.S. or Europe would help them. They had a chance for Russia to help them. They had a chance to and needed to rebuild. Maybe China could have helped them rebuild after this war that they had, where Russia pulled them out of the fire. And it's so why didn't they take it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it doesn't make sense, and that's why I put it in the context of asking people to, imagine having dealt with sort of a crazy family member, who's a drug addict, right. And you tell them, and they come to you and say, "Hey, I'm not going to make my car payment. My car is going to be repossessed. And kick me out of my apartment. I need $2,000."
Well,
okay, so you say, well, okay, if I can give you the $2,000,
why don't you sell the television? I already sold the television.
Yeah. Or here's what I need you to do. If you want me to help, mm-hmm. Here's what I'm going to need you to do. And they end up saying, "Oh, well, hell, you're taking away my freedom. I'm not going to do that." Okay, that's fine. You've got that freedom of choice. Now live with your decision. Mm-hmm. Right. That's exactly what Russia did to Syria.
Right.
They just said, "Hey, we've given you a way out. We've given you some things that you're going to need to do. We're not going to be calling the shots, but this is what you need to do. One of the things you need to do is sit down and talk to Erdogan." I'm not going to talk to Erdogan. Okay? So if you're not going to talk to Erdogan, what do we have to talk about? Right. Nothing.
Right.
And that's what the situation is now. And, I draw up on those kinds of analogies because I've dealt with it in my own family. And
I was going to say, is that what things were like down in Virginia?
Oh no! Well, no, that was I'm originally from Missouri.
Ah,
So,
Yeah.
but I had a
I know how
nephew,
that is.
and he was incredibly talented, had lots of ability, but there were things going on in his life that he wouldn't make the choices, and he ended up dying from a fentanyl overdose. So all the efforts I made to try to help him, to try to get him to change his life, to try to make some other choices that would serve him better, he declined to do so. And he was, 39 years old, an adult. He had the right to make those choices. But you got to understand in life, when you make certain choices, bad things can come out of those choices. And that's exactly what happened to Bashar al-Assad. He made some really bad choices and refused to listen to some really good advice. And now he and his people are suffering the consequences.
well, the
Mainly
key
his
point is
people are
and the
suffering
people,
the
right? Because
consequences.
because your nephew didn't drag down an entire state with him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is much worse because instead of just one person dying, you got thousands of people dying, and even as we're talking now, there are revenge killings. There are members of HTS going into the homes of Christians and Alawites and dragging them out, taking their homes, shooting them in some cases, forcing them to flee in others. It's not pretty, and it's not that's not going to turn around because
Well,
when they do that,
I mean,
what it does is it feeds into a cycle of revenge.
Right.
yeah. I mean, there hasn't been like a mass public policy of beheading everyone, but there have been videos coming out of people with their heads being, very crudely cut off with knives and it's
Right, right.
and so it's like, this, the head choppers are in charge now, and well, although they're not really in charge because there's no central system of control for the entire state. I mean, they can't even defend themselves against foreign aggression because Israel's just taken out like their entire air force, their entire navy. It's like there's like they have very little left, right?
Right.
And they've said they want to be friends with Israel now. Maybe that's
Yeah.
just something they're doing.
And this wouldn't be the first time that Israel's, quote, been friends with what they call Islamic extremists. Remember back in 1980, there was this guy called the Ayatollah Khomeini. Who was Israel giving weapons to? That would be the Ayatollah Khomeini. Why? Because Israel is considered Bashar or Saddam Hussein a bigger threat than they considered Ayatollah Khomeini. So they climbed into bed with the Iranians and helped the Iranians fight the war against Iraq. And then, we learned about a lot of this when the whole Iran-Contra scandal broke.
Right.
So I said, this is all, like I said, if you're looking for a good, clear, this guy's the white hat, and we're supporting them, and this guy's the black hat, he's bad, we need to oppose him. That's just a cartoon view of the world. It's not reality.
Well, and it also reflects one of these games where we have, two obstacles to power in the region, and we decide that we just want to set them off against one another and have them kill each other.
Right.
And we can make some money by funding it on both sides, and and when the smoke clears, they're both gone, right? Or they're both weak.
Well, that's our hope. In fact, we did that.
Yeah, that's the hope, but it's. I mean, just like the war in Ukraine was going to drastically weaken Russia, right?
Well, let's go. Let's go back to 1979. The Iranian students take over our embassy in Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
The Ayatollah, who's been in power now for 10 months, 11 months, he becomes a symbol of evil for the United States. And then so Ronald Reagan enters office. And early in it was April or March of 1981, the CIA comes into Reagan's office with the Israelis in tow. And what do the Israelis ask? They ask for permission to provide U.S. weapons to the Ayatollah. And why? Because they feared that Iraq was going to get a nuclear bomb. And so they wanted to stop Iraq. So what did Reagan do? He said, okay, go ahead and do it. About a year later, you get a picture of Don Rumsfeld in Baghdad.
The Bible and the cake,
He's with Saddam Hussein, and
Uh,
we're providing weapons to Saddam Hussein as well.
you're right. I think it was
Because the U.S.
I think it was Cap Weinberger that was over in Iran at that
No,
point.
no, no. It was Don Rumsfeld.
Okay. Okay. All right.
The picture, look it up. Look the picture up on the internet,
Oh yeah.
and
Well.
yeah, you'll find it.
Your memory does strange things to
Rummy
you
was
over decades. So okay.
Rummy was smiling. I'm much older than you. I remember.
Okay. All right.
I was there for all this.
Oh
Yeah,
dear.
you probably weren't even born yet. Okay.
That's generous. I'm much older than you think. I think.
Oh, you had that youthful voice.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
It's
but
it's all just for radio. You should see how creaky it is in real life.
no, I understand that. I was told I have a face made for radio. So, but the
Well, at
what,
least
what
you
the
don't have
United
a
States
voice made
poli-
for. At least you don't have a voice made for print media.
Well, that's true. Um, but the U.S. plan back then was to get the Iraqis and Iranians fighting each other
Right.
because we saw that as a way to weaken the Soviet Union.
Right.
And so we had little regard for how many Iraqis got killed or how many Iranians got killed. We didn't care. Not our people. Let them die. That was our policy. And then so here we go. We didn't learn a damn thing from that. Did that weaken Iran? Did that destroy Iraq? No. We ended up out of that going back to claiming we needed to fight Iraq twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time was basically when the Kuwaitis were stealing Iraqi oil, and the Iraqis came to us and said, "Hey, they're stealing our oil. We're going to do something about it." And April Glaspie met with Saddam Hussein, and Hussein asked her, "Hey, you guys got a problem if we do this?" And basically, she said, "The United States does not have a position on this." And so Saddam took it and said, "Okay, the Americans don't care. I don't think I can go ahead and do it." And he did it. And then all of a sudden we get the first Gulf War. And, all of a sudden Saddam Hussein's the face of all the evil, So, it's our own hypocrisy that is on display here.
Well, I mean, it's partly because you've got groups that are promoting each of these ventures that really don't care that much if we ultimately succeed, right? You've got some people that are like really zealots and really believe it and keep on believing it no matter how often it fails. But you've got other people that say, well, what if it fails? We still get to sell the weapons either way, right? So, there's
that now you're putting your finger on it. All of this, really, I've come to cynically believe it involves two things: getting access to oil that we can control, and creating situations in the world that justify expanding our defense budget, which is now, last I checked, approaching $850 billion. We're going to be in the $1 trillion club before long.
Yeah. No, I think all of that is true. Look, we've got maybe 11 minutes left or 10 minutes left in the program. What is the most important thing that we should be concerned of, because we could actually potentially influence in some way? Because it's interesting to look at all this like an academic exercise that we can learn from, but what are the things that are coming up that we might be able to influence positively or negatively that we should be looking out for, that we might be able to change?
I don't think there's anything. I think we're on a path of collision. What has happened now? You've heard this circulating both in Washington and in Israel. What do they need to do now? By God, we need to launch a preemptive strike against Israel. We need to take them out. I mean, against Iran. We need to take out Iran's nuclear program. We need to attack now while they're weakened. So the prescription is, you remember the Saturday Night Live skit with, was it John Voight or Christopher Walken? It was Christopher Walken, and they were doing a riff on Blue Oyster Cult, the band.
Oh yeah,
and
yes.
Every time he came out as a music producer, he says, "That was great, guys, but we need more cowbell."
Yes.
No more cowbell. Well, that is the policy in Washington, D.C. We simply need more war. We need more cowbell. Because when you get more cowbell, the shareholders at Lockheed Martin, at General Dynamics, man, they are doing great. life is good. They're making money, and in the course of making that money, the shareholders get wealthier.
So, I mean,
and best of all, no Americans are dying in these wars that we start. Or a few die, but that doesn't amount to much. I mean, look, we did Vietnam for 15, 20 years. And, 58,000 guys, mostly guys, some women died. But, to be very crass about it, it was no big deal because we didn't lose that many people. We lose 58,000 a year in automobile accidents.
Acceptable wastage.
Yeah. We don't shut down people from driving. So by God, what are we going to? We're going to shut down the international order just because a few, 58,000 people die over 15 years. That's nothing. Well, and so that's part of the reason we keep doing this. We never pay a price in blood for the destruction we cause. Never.
And then we cause massive loss of blood and treasure on the other side. And a lot of people lose their lives, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you have people in Congress that are like gleeful about that, and it's really disturbing. But I think from what you've said, it's not like there's nothing we can do. I mean, we can at least oppose our politicians when they come to us wanting a war with Iran, right? I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Well, we can try.
Yeah, we can try. No, we can try, and we can insist that Donald Trump keep his promise. Hey, Trump, you promised that you weren't going to get us into any more wars. You're going to get us out of wars. Keep that promise. Mm-hmm. If he keeps that promise, then yes. If the Trump supporters demand that he keep that promise, yeah, we can avoid this.
I think Trump opponents need to get on the bandwagon and start to try to influence Trump, right? Because, we may not be willing to vote for him. He's not going to be running again for 4 years anyway, right?
He's not going to be running again.
Well, he can't run again. Period.
Right. They'd have to change the Constitution. He's limited out, right?
Yeah. And he'll be too old for that. I think he's got enough sense to not want to keep doing that. So, but this is the other irony. I grew up in the era where the so-called left, the party of George McGovern, mm-hmm. and here's again, think of the irony of this. George McGovern actually was a bomber pilot in World War II, and by virtue of being a bomber pilot in World War II, he was in the unit that suffered more casualties than really any other unit outside the Navy, and so he fought. He knew what war was, which was one of the reasons he was such an opponent of war. Mm-hmm. And the big proponents were all these guys, whether it was Lyndon Baines Johnson or Richard Nixon. They had all worn a uniform, but none of them had ever sniffed combat. None of them ever heard a bullet fired in anger. And so they were quite happy to go and stir up these wars and run those risks. And so that's what, I'm a big believer that, we've gone from a Democrat Party that was willing to at least advocate peace. So now the Democrats are as big a war hawks as anybody. We got to fund Ukraine. We got to keep pumping money to the Israelis. Now let's keep this war, and we got to stop it. We got to stop Iran.
Yeah, I just think it's very important for people who want peace and want good policies to step aside from their partisan affiliations for a second, right? And not go easy on the Democrats when they do bad, not to go easy on the Republicans when they do bad, but remain very, very consistent about what we want, and whether you voted for the guy or you didn't vote for the guy, will you'll ever have a chance to vote for him again or not, you should be out there telling him this is what you should do. You should not make this war, right? And I think we have a lot of problem, I think, here in just like our local peace community, that we have most of these people that are in the group. I mean, some of them are very good, but most of them have some allegiance to the Democratic Party, and they're very nervous about getting too political. They're very nervous about injuring the Democrats' chances in some way by going hard against the Democrat in terms of challenging their conduct. So it's it's a restraint that
maybe
they
now
shouldn't
it'll
have.
be easier because there's going to be a Republican in office, so they can feel like they can advocate for peace, and it won't be against their guy.
Well, they're certainly not advocating for peace in Ukraine.
No, they are
They're
not.
doing just the opposite. They're
Yeah.
pumping. The Democrats are insisting, let's pump as much money in there as possible, with Joe Biden taking the lead.
It's
And
shameful.
then the United States is just involved, I believe, indirectly through the intelligence community in the assassination of this Russian general last early Tuesday morning in Russia. So that's going to lead to some real repercussions. Things could get out of hand. We've got it. I come from the generation, I was considered a conservative, but as I've gotten older and seen just the cynicism and the lack of morality in what we've been doing, and the complete disregard we have for these people who live in these other countries, where we allow them to be killed, and we don't care. Why don't we care? It's not our brother and sister. It's not our father and mother. It's not our grandchild. Why do we care? They're just Palestinians or Iraqis or Afghanis or Syria. We don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very one thing that's been very good to see in this last period, because as everything else is sort of seems to be going to hell in the world, and there are also some bright spots, but we're creating a lot of chaos, through our foreign policy. It's been very nice to see, people on the far left going on these programs with these right-wing people, and it's like, just seeing the people you might be from one ideological background, I might be from another ideological background, but we are 100% completely aligned on this. This is horrible. It doesn't serve any of our ideological agendas. It's just killing a lot of people, and it doesn't do any good for anybody except for the arms manufacturers and certain groups that are poised to benefit from it directly.
Yeah, if you followed the stock price of the major defense contractors, their value's gone way up over the last 2.5 years with the special military operation in Ukraine.
And a lot of Congress people are invested. A lot of Congress people have those stocks, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So we have like 1 minute left, or less than 1 minute. I'd like to thank you for being on the program. And if you've got you want to put a pitch in for your website, we've got a few minutes to be able to do that.
I encourage people they can read me and follow me. Get to all my other media outlets at sonar21.com. I'm like a Wisconsin dairy farmer. I get up every day and I try to write an article. It's like milking the cows.
All right.
Thank you very much, Larry Johnson.
All right.
Hey, thank you guys. I enjoyed it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.